Welcome back to Just Giants with Grump and the Cranky Fan, the best damn podcast for the best damn football team. I'm your host of Football Grump. With me, as always, is Mike, the Cranky Fan, and this is incredible. The Giants win their first postseason game since the 2011 Super Bowl. I haven't heard this talked about much, but I guess we can kiss the curse of the boat picture goodbye.
I guess so.
That fake bugaboo that I don't think is a real thing. I think we can retire that. That's not a thing that we can talk about anymore. And man, this was a great feeling. This wasn't just like a nail biter win. Did you get that feeling at all, or did you feel fairly comfortable this whole game?
I was nail biting. I was nervous. I really was. Not that, oh my God, we're going to lose this thing, but I never felt that it was like this thing was in the bag at all. I get into my playoff cocoon of, being in a fetal position, which is pretty interesting when we're in front of 200 people. And we'll talk about our experience watching the game. But no, I was nervous. I was very nervous. And, it's the excitement level for me is on a couple of levels. It's, obviously this year, and now we're going on to Philly. We've validated a season that, none of us believed would ever happen. And it wasn't a one and done fluky thing that we kind of snuck in. We earned our way in and we want to validate that we are here. But it also tells me that, the fundamental things of this program, there's stuff to build on that this could be sustained. I am not saying this is a Super Bowl, team just yet. I think that's getting a little ahead of our skis, but I don't expect next year all of a sudden this team to be back to be a 4-win team. I think you're seeing the emergence of the foundation. You're seeing the Daniel Jones taking that step. You're seeing how important Saquon Barkley is when he's healthy. You are seeing how this coaching staff squeezes water out of rocks, and this front office who, with limited funds this year, is able to plug in guys that worked. So I have parallel things going on in my brain right now. The immediate, we're playing Philly again, and let's see what happens. But also, this is my outlook for even the future is just makes me really, really excited.
The Giants win 31-24 over the Vikings in their rematch. We watched this game at Mr. Purple in New York. It was hosted by John Boy Media and Talking Giants. Bobby and Justin put this thing together. It's kind of like a rooftop bar, indoor-outdoor situation with multiple TVs, projectors, things going on. They were live streaming the game. There were all kinds of there was cornhole and shit. And
first of all, yeah, just a complete shout out to those guys because they really did this thing right. It was it felt like you were sitting in the middle of Section 124. I mean, the fans that were there, these weren't people who were just I'm just walking around, let's check it out. We had the crazies there, all of our friends that we hang out with, all the ones from the L16 tailgate were all there. Justin and Bobby were running around during commercials, high-fiving everybody, throwing out, you name it, stuff,
and
stickers and fun stuff. And it was good because, you can hear the comments, you can hear Justin screaming and cursing at non-holding calls and everything. And it was just, it was just really, if you couldn't go to the game and it couldn't be at the Meadowlands, this was absolutely a fantastic thing. And I don't know what their plans are for the next game if they're doing it again, but I would highly recommend.
Oh, yeah.
A, listening to their show, which we think is fantastic and we love those guys. But B, I would get a ticket for that because it really, we made some new friends. We hung out with old friends, and it really added to the whole atmosphere and the whole playoff vibe that we've been waiting for so long.
Yeah, it was a really cool way. And it really, the way they had it where they were kind of live streaming out onto the internet and also on a loudspeaker there for 250 other people really kind of brings home that we're hanging out and watching the game together kind of feel. It was a lot of fun, and it felt like we were part of something. It's also why I have no voice today. So I'm doing my best to go through this. But, man, this was an outstanding game. And I'm always going to be anxious a little bit, some butterflies in my veins during a game, but especially during a playoff game. But like you were saying, where you were nail biting, this to me, the way they played right out of the gate and the way they continued to play the whole game, this was not like, oh my God, we have the lead. I don't know how this happened, but we've got to hold on to it. It was like, oh, I know how this happened. They are shredding them to pieces.
Yeah.
This was a game in fucking control. And I want to talk about this game, very generally, just, how we felt about it, all the things, because this is more than X's and O's and stats for me.
Oh, yeah.
This is playoff level, and this is you pull the Statue of Liberty play out. This is, you need to win every down, every game going forward now. This is winner take all. So
Totally.
it's got a lot of emotion tied to it, but we can't talk about this game and not start with Daniel Jones. Give me your thoughts.
Everything I see with this guy over the last, 6 weeks, it's just, where were we talking about him a year ago? Daniel Jones was never as bad as, the general perception was, even from day one. A lot of people and media members thought it was a silly pick, thought he was too highly picked. Their first impression is the turnover machine he was early in his career. And those are, lingering memories you have. And people that were going to die on their hill that they shouldn't have drafted him never liked him and never gave him a chance. But if you broke down, you saw a young quarterback that obviously needed to play and develop and master an offense and master a team and become a leader. And we saw that finally this year. Again, another offensive coordinator, another scheme, 3 receivers right now he's throwing to that, really weren't either on this roster or had any plan to be a part of this roster when training camp broke. So, adjusting on the fly to those things and just having that cool, calm demeanor, that Eli-esque demeanor that he has, that nothing, he's not flappable for the moment or a situation or a pass rush or negativity or anything. And it just showed today. It just showed like a quarterback that just knows his offense, knows what he wants to do, and he executed. I mean, but all that stuff's all fine and great if you have to execute. And he did. He was fantastic.
I think what we're seeing with Daniel Jones now, by the way, 24 of 35 for over 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, 17 runs for nearly 80 yards. I would say he played this game just about perfect. I would say if I had fallen into a coma for like the last 5 years and came about and only saw this game from Daniel Jones, I would have said he was a seasoned veteran. That's just the way he played. It's the way it looked. If you didn't know anything prior, if you don't know any narratives, he looked like a seasoned veteran. And I think what we're seeing, honestly, might be the first time Daniel Jones has felt comfortable and in command of an offense of NFL quality. I mean, I think that at some point at Duke, maybe he felt comfortable in what he was running, and you could see him throwing bombs. You could have a whole highlight reel of Daniel Jones' throws that were dropped at Duke. Him getting just pounded into the fucking dirt. And I think his entire tenure with the Giants, I think he never quite got situated or comfortable in a scheme that had pieces around it that worked. This was a front office and a coach that asked what he was already the most comfortable with on the outset, and then they went ahead and they got pieces and they molded the rest of an offense, it seems like, around the skill set he has, what he's comfortable running, and what they could afford. And they have kind of played a little bit of Moneyball.
Yeah.
I mean,
Sure.
when you think about it, they have benched the $72 million wide receiver for the most part. They've traded away the 2021 first-round draft pick, and they didn't give a shit about nothing. They went straight Moneyball. And I think really a lot of it
they also didn't take his 5th-year option. That's part of Moneyball too, if you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, but also they kind of had to make him bet on himself a little bit, and I think it was a good test of character for Daniel Jones. He bet on himself and won that bet, as whoever
Well,
said that.
I mean, he didn't decline the option. We declined the option. So I don't know if him betting on himself.
But well, whatever. He put himself out there. He put his nose to the, I don't know, whatever.
But one thing I will say about that really quickly is, in hindsight, if I'm the Giants, I still would have done the same thing that they did. I mean, people are going to go back and say, now, which is complete 150%, revisionist history about, well, they should have signed him. They should have locked him up. They should have known.
I don't think anyone's going to say that, though.
Yeah, no. Well, these imbeciles on Twitter and stuff. But no, I think the Giants, they did the right thing at the time, and they have to pay a little more now. So be it. That's a problem you wish you have.
It's sort of irrelevant. You have a new GM coming in. You have a new everything. You're not taking bets on anything that you don't know anything about. Never met this kid. You haven't really been in the building with him. You're immediately faced with a decision with a deadline on him. You decline it. I mean, it's just you have to decline it.
And the evidence before them was not compelling enough to say, oh, it's a no-brainer. You keep him.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And if he knocks your socks off by week 5, you can just get a head start on renegotiation deals. I mean, it's really not that serious.
Right.
The 5th-year option thing, it's not even like a discount. Like, isn't it like, it's like a super high amount. So it like puts them in the price range of, like veterans or whatever. It might be a slight discount, but it's not going to be like they get another like rookie year of like $4 million instead of like 25. So
And I definitely think me and you were, not that we're Daniel Jones fans or, number one supporters of him, but we also were some of the more forgiving of the past, and we're more willing to have an open, open eyes and open heart watching him this year and evaluating before we were like ready to dismiss him.
Well, sure. I mean, I'm not. This has nothing to do with you or me. And like, I saw a lot of people walking back previous positions. You don't have to walk back anything. If you made that decision based on what you saw, you did the best you could, and you were maybe right, maybe wrong. Who gives a shit? But I've said I thought he was the most talented quarterback in this division for a long time. And I know we maybe thought that I was crazy about Dak Prescott, but I still don't think that about Dak Prescott. I still think he's better, more talented. He just hasn't had the pieces around him, hasn't been comfortable, but he has had his hiccups, his problems. And, I mentioned them ad nauseum, like his pocket movement, pocket awareness. He needs that internal clock to be kept up. Those were the things he needed to get better at to be a, more obvious, a better quarterback. The general public would recognize him as a better quarterback. And he improved on all 3 of those things this year. There's probably the most tangible things that he's improved upon is his ability to move and manipulate the pocket and have that internal awareness, and it's also been part of the reason he was turnover prone in the past. So we've seen those turnovers go down, whatever. But forgetting all of that shit, Daniel Jones in the, general, in this game, he was lightning. I mean, he looked like a surgeon in his groove. Like he could do it with his eyes closed in this game. Like nothing for a long time in this game. Most of the first half, the worst play that the Giants had was like a 4-yard pass completion. That was the worst play they ran for several minutes, like 4 or 5 possessions. That was like the worst play that they ran. That's insane. He had this operation just running very, very smoothly throughout the entire game. In fact, this offense had a grand total of 9 possessions. 2 of those possessions happened at the end of halves, so they ended in kneel downs. 2 of those possessions were punts. The other 5 were all scores. That's the most efficient we have seen this offense in the Daniel Jones era.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, the Giants, frankly, they made Ed Donatell's defense their bitch in this game. They were consistently in third and manageable or not even in third down. They gave a variety of different looks. They spread the ball around. They read the defensive looks like a book, and they had the right stuff drawn up. And DJ knew where to go if nothing was open. He would just run.
Let me ask you something. Of these weekend football games, and we're recording this after the Dallas game is over.
Right.
Who looked more washed this weekend? Tom Brady or Patrick Peterson?
Oh man.
It's a real laundry mat between those two because Patrick Peterson looked awful.
Well, he got undressed. I
Yeah.
mean, quite frankly, he had a holding call almost in the end zone towards the end of the game. He got beat on 2 touchdowns. He got caught looking on the Bellinger one, and he just simply got beat on a post route from Isaiah Hodgins. He also got stiff-armed by Daniel Jones.
Yeah. I mean, we felt after the first game on Christmas Eve that the Giants could have and probably should have won this game. After today, it was like, we're the better team. And I know what their record was, and we also know what the advanced stats saying, that their record is not indicative of what kind of team they are. But I definitely walked out of that after that game thinking we're better than them. And if we played them 10 times, we probably beat them 7 or 8. And,
see, that's interesting because after the first game, you said the exact phrase, if we played them 10 times, we probably win 5.
Right. Well, just you play them again, you get more data and you get more evidence. And so, we're better. And, having guys back definitely helped. I think there was more confidence in the defense as well, just from the fact that Adoree Jackson was back that Xavier McKinney was back. Football is all about confidence, and if you don't believe me, look at what Dallas's kicker did tonight. He missed 4 extra points. It's confidence. And with this team is, at the right time is getting confidence, the 46 guys in the roster, the coaching staff, everything. And you could just see that they came into this game not nervous. It was a lot of these guys' first playoff game, not nervous against playing in a loud environment, not nervous, playing against a team that's a 2 seed. They came in there to beat some ass, and they did.
They showed up without bubblegum.
No.
You mentioned very briefly there that Daniel Jones is throwing to 3 main receivers right now that either were not on the roster or were not thought to be a main component of the roster at the outset of the season. And over the last couple of weeks, we have talked about Isaiah Hodgins, and I think it's time. I'm deciding for me. I mean, you could do whatever, but I'm deciding for me that it's time I recognize that Isaiah Hodgins might actually be pretty good. People had floated out the idea on Twitter a couple weeks ago about like, oh, do you re-sign him for next year? And I was like, come on, just replace him. Like, don't fawn over the bridge guys or whatever. I think Isaiah Hodgins might not be a bridge guy anymore. I mean, he's already really young. And I saw the comparison earlier this morning to, and I meant to look up who said this too because I wanted to give them credit, but I saw that Dan Schneier quoted it. So check out Dan Schneier's Twitter, whatever. He gave proper credit. But that Isaiah Hodgins has a little bit of a Monty Toomer to his game. Always diving head first. He's got excellent hands. Really, really good body control, especially around the sideline. All hallmarks of Amani Toomer's game in the past. Very good feel for soft spots in the zone. In this game, he went 8 of 9 for 105 yards and a touchdown. It was on a post route. He had a huge grab in the red zone in the second quarter. He had some big blocks on some runs as well. That toe tap that I mentioned in the second half was outstanding. I mean, that is not just a replacement level play right there. And at this point, with the amount of data that we've received on him in live bullets, I would say that is a consistent part of Isaiah Hodgins' game. I think, giving out stars, Daniel Jones, Isaiah Hodgins definitely deserves a star. He was uncoverable in this game. They had no answer for him.
Let's do the math. I mean, next year, who are the only wide receivers pretty much assured of being on the roster next year? Wan'Dale Robinson, and I don't know. Does Sterling Shepard have a spot on this roster next year? A for sure one?
Hang on one second. Let's see. Hodgins is already re-signed through next year. Colin Johnson probably gets a shot. He was getting a bunch of reps. That's kind of it, though. Darius Slayton's not signed through next year. Wan'Dale Robinson is. Richie James is not yet. Neither is Sterling Shepard.
That's my point. It's like they're going to have to replace pretty much that whole room. So to say that should he get a shot, I guess now we know he'll be signed next year anyway. But let's say he was a free agent this year, I'd say absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
let's assume they're going to draft a wide receiver either, day one or day two, and they get another one, a free agent. There's still a very important role for him on this team. Even if he's wide receiver 3 or even 4. I mean, would you like to have Isaiah Hodgins as your number 4 receiver on this team? I would, for sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, like I said, like with the Amani Toomer comparison, I don't think that that's super far off based on what I saw. I mean, I have to continue seeing it, but I mean, joke all we want about Patrick Peterson being washed, and he may very well be. He's still in super talented corner, and to have such a dominant performance on him 2 times, in addition to all the other things we've seen from Isaiah Hodgins, it's not to be ignored or downplayed. I wouldn't mind him as the 3 next year. I mean, I don't want to get too much into this because I want to talk about this game, whatever, but it's important to note, like you said, Colin Johnson, Isaiah Hodgins, Wan'Dale Robinson, those are the guys signed through next year. Wan'Dale Robinson's coming off a mid-season ACL. I have no idea, and we should not count on him being ready just because he may not be, and you have to be ready for that scenario. Colin Johnson is coming off of a preseason ACL. I mean, holy shit, man. So none of this matters.
And Colin Johnson, is not exactly going to keep me excited at night either.
No, but I mean, the fact that he's re-signed, he'll get a chance to compete. He might.
Oh, yeah.
He might, especially in this offense. Whatever. But I just wanted to say my piece on Isaiah Hodgins. Everybody's walking back their Daniel Jones opinion. It's time for me to speak out on Isaiah Hodgins. Deserves a star.
Yeah.
And some respect on his name as well.
Sure. Absolutely.
I mentioned Darius Slayton. Had a really, really great first half. Super pivotal on a lot of things. Had a huge chunk play early on that set us up on the second drive of the game. The second drive of the game set us up for a score really quick. I think it was some crazy shit like a 4-play drive because he had like a 50-yard catch. But man, a killer of the drop that would have essentially ended the game on like 3rd and 15 too, and he had it, and just a clear drop.
There are certain people in this world who I just don't trust. And, Evan Ingram was one of those guys. If you're a Knick fan, Julius Randle is one of those guys. And Darius Slayton, for all his ability and all the good things he does, I just cannot trust him in a big spot. And when he dropped that pass, that was the first time I was, I said it was a nail biter for me. But that was the first time I was like, oh shit, that's the last thing we needed right now. And, that's just what he is. I mean, he's just a guy that's, can make big plays. Looks like he's got talent, but goddamn, you have to make a play at the right time. And I'm not asking you to make, an amazing, spectacular catch or, but something like that is kind of inexcusable. And I don't know. I just can't trust the guy. Sorry.
Yeah, it's not, I would not consider it fart worthy, but I would call it a dishonorable mention. And like I said, he had a huge first half. I mean, it's not not to be shied at. I don't know what it is. All these guys with like the improper catch motion with the hands, like this basket catch thing when you're going across the middle, like is one of the first things I learned in like young football, peewee football, was like how to shape your hands to make a catch. And I don't understand. Like, is that,
I don't want to bring up his name, but I will. When Kadarius Toney first started at UF, that's the way he caught everything like that. Inside hands like this. And he was taught and he learned that's not what you do. And
but
most
that's
receivers, that's what they do because they're nervous and they want to make sure that they cradle it with their bodies and they get more confidence or they just get trained. That's not how you catch. And, that's one of the things we see with, what's his name?
with Kenny Galladay.
Kenny Galladay still catches like that.
But so like, I just don't understand. So it's like, I trust this coaching staff. Like, why can't this be coached out of these guys? Like, I just don't get it. I can kind of understand like Darius Slayton at Auburn, where it's just like if everything is going to be like a go route for him or something where he can just kind of run ahead of it, turn around and like put his stomach to it and kind of just like backboard it into his hands, then you can just run a whole offense like that and there's no need to coach it out of him. But it's just I don't get it at the NFL level, and he's been here a while, and he's been under Joe Judge, who was a good teacher or always prided himself on teaching. I just don't get why you can't just be in front of a jugs machine. Like you can't just iron that out of him.
I don't know. Maybe it's just part of that same mental thing where he has drops where he just, he resorts to his instincts as opposed to,
I guess so.
How he's trained. I don't know.
Same, similar thing here. I'm going to give a dishonorable mention to Daniel Bellinger. I think he had a good game. He also had a touchdown. So, but the illegal shift play on DJ's touchdown where he just it's kind of really just like a false start, but because we had somebody in motion and he was moving laterally, that's just how it's called, whatever. That ultimately became a field goal. We did not punch it in on that drive. That could have also become the difference, just the same as Darius Slayton's drop. And one more thing about Darius Slayton's drop. You said you were like nail biting, whatever, and you really felt like that was an oh shit moment. The only reason I didn't is because they still had a whole touchdown lead. It was just like, what are they going to do, tie it? Okay. Maybe.
Yeah, that would have scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
The last thing I want to do is to go into overtime. Last thing.
No, the last thing I want to do is lose in regulation.
Well, yeah, but I mean...
That's what I'm saying, is that we weren't facing losing.
In my mind, in a pressure situation like that for me, going to overtime, we're going to lose.
Yeah.
We're not putting logic into the mind of the Cranky fan with 3 minutes left in a playoff game.
Fair enough. Well, let's flip to why I was not all that worried. The defensive side. Now, they did not come... This was interesting. This was an interesting game from the defense. I could say it was like disappointing, whatever, but they held the Vikings to 24 points. So it really was not that bad. I think it was because it was a little shot for shot and because we didn't see a big pass rush that people thought the defense played poorly. I didn't think that they really did, but they did blitz at a season low level. It was something like 20%. They sent 5 rushers or more, which the Giants have been the highest rate in the NFL, and it was like north of 50%. I don't really pay attention to those metrics. Every time people reference them, they kind of are like, well, it's also not super accurate because bring 5 guys, whatever. But they played an emphasis on coverage in this game. They wanted to eliminate Justin Jefferson in this game. They played lots of dime, lots of 7 DB formation. They played a lot more zone than usual. They bracketed the shit out of Justin Jefferson and they shut his ass down. He was noisy on the first drive, but ended this game on only 9 targets, 7 catches for less than 50 yards. And one more small note on Justin Jefferson. If it's not for Adoree Jackson playing this game and his speed, Justin Jefferson scores a touchdown on that opening drive. Instead, he's down at like the inch line and Kirk Cousins goes in. But just saying, Adoree cannot, his presence in this game cannot be overstated. Mm-hmm. And I think Wink Martindale felt that the front 4 could take advantage of a hurt O-line. And to a certain extent, they did. They just didn't get any holding calls. And also, Kirk Cousins was getting the ball out in like 2.5 seconds. So it's not like the pass rush wasn't getting there. It's just when they weren't sending blitzers, there wasn't a free rusher getting their hands up or whatever. It just appears a little differently. Kirk Cousins was firing the ball out. They were kind of making some noise. So I didn't feel... When you were watching the Vikings and they were moving the ball down the field, it didn't feel surgical to me. It felt like little things almost working, 1-2 yards, tackle for a loss or something, and then like a 11-yard catch, just enough to get a first down. The Giants, I think for like 2 drives, faced 1 third down and scored touchdowns on both of them. It was like they just moved down the field. Everything that the Vikings lined up, they had the answer for. It did not feel... I was the most comfortable I've ever been watching the Giants in like the last... I guess since the Colts game, but before that, going way back to 2016 maybe even. Even then that offense sucked. I haven't felt this comfortable watching a Giants offense in a super long time. They really had every answer out there. So the defense, the way they played in this game, it was pretty good. And Fabian Moreau, you'd think he didn't even play in this game. His number was never called. They didn't even bother throwing in his direction this whole game.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I mean, Hawkinson, he kind of went off, and if Justin Jefferson was, we were afraid. We did not want Justin Jefferson just breaking loose and having a quick score, like a 60-yard, catching a slant or something and taking off and being gone, and we prevented that. That was important. We made them earn their touchdowns and earn their scores. And I think that was very, very important. Cousins was good. I mean, he's just one of those quarterbacks that's just very frustrating, especially if he was your quarterback, where, at the end of the day, he's sort of like just losers lose. It's not, he was 31 of 39, 273. Numbers were comparable to Daniel Jones, but, Daniel Jones, if you watched and didn't know what the stats were, you would say just had a much better game than Cousins. He felt more, he felt less bothered by the defense, where I think Kirk Cousins was more bothered. You say that make a good comparison?
I would say 100%.
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins did not play poorly. I would not, if he were my quarterback in this game, I wouldn't have given him a fart. I would have said it's not his fault. The Giants just put him in a position where they weren't going to give the yak guy any room for yak. So Justin Jefferson was limited to the catch point on just about all 7 of his catches. And that's kind of why they'd rather leave TJ Hawkinson if they got to pick one or the other. I mean, it's not that they didn't want to get Hawkinson under control. I think at halftime, Nick Falato pointed out that they made a big switch from Landon Collins on the field to Jason Pinnock, and then later Dane Belton. I'm sorry, maybe that was Dan Duggan, but whatever. They made some switches to get Hawkinson under control, but if they were going to pick their poison, they definitely shut down. That was the number one thing they were going to do, is all other stats be damned, Justin Jefferson is not getting in the end zone on us.
And, the other guy that they pretty much shut down, when really that wasn't much of a factor, was Dalvin Cook.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, this team, we complained, middle of the year. I think I complained more than you did about the rushing defense. It's slowly but steady getting better, it feels like. It doesn't feel like it's getting gassed like it was before.
Yeah, I would say so. I think also
Dalvin Cook he's one of the, I would say, one of the 5 most talented running backs we'll face all year, just as far as talent. And he was really not much of a factor.
No, he wasn't. And you know what they played? Part of the way, when they sat back in these zones that they don't usually play, or just, they kind of had everything in front of them, they really shut down that screen game. I mean, just whatever. Maybe that's due to the fact that on the play that set up a 61-yard field goal, there was a screen pass that went for whatever on a blitz. But, I mean, Darnay Holmes looks so good coming downhill. I mean, he really does attack shit and make some good quality tackles right at the line of scrimmage and at the the point of contact. They've shut that shit down, and Dalvin Cook was no different. In the screen game, they had that shit read. Early on, I think he had a little bit of success, but I think that was really just kind of getting settled and that first drive scriptiness that kind of comes with stuff. I feel like we could talk about him every game, but Dexter Lawrence was the guy that showed up probably the most in terms of the 4-man front. 6 tackles, 2 of them solo, a tackle for loss, 4 QB hits, and had a huge QB hit on the final drive of the game that got flagged for roughing the passer. And I figured maybe you want to talk about how that was absolute horse shit.
Well, what did they call it? It was because he hit that hand to the face, right? Hand to the helmet?
I don't know that they ever actually gave the full explanation. I've watched the broadcast multiple times. Mike Pereira doesn't say. whether it is or isn't, but he covers both bases in that the hit to the face mask was really just a glancing blow off of his forearm, very incidental contact, not a forcible blow like it was, whatever. And then the tackle itself was, Kirk Cousins has the ball in his hands when he's being spun around. So,
look, I think it was Bill Simmons a couple weeks ago on his podcast made a really good point that I think the NFL really should consider with these judgment calls. It's like, in soccer, if you foul somebody, you get a yellow card, or if they think it's egregious and it is intent, you go straight to red. And, that means you're out of the game, and that's that. And I just feel like something like that where, yes, there was contact with the hand going to the helmet, that's not the same as an egregious late hit on a guy. And it's the same penalty, and it's ridiculous. I mean, I know there used to be the 5-yard versus 15-yard penalty on, on some certain
face
things.
masks, I think.
Yeah, and they got rid of it. I mean, to me, we have to if it's a rule or something where officials are using judgment to say did they do it or not do it, judgment should also apply to the severity of it, including intent, because that is. We complain all the time. Like me and you on this show, with our friends on TV, everybody complains about it. That how are these guys on defense supposed to play when they are being regulated to death, protecting these quarterbacks and protecting anybody? And last couple of weeks we've seen some guys get have very serious injuries, and I feel like they're going to keep doing that more and more to protect players. And it just makes it so hard to play. And it's a real problem.
I mean, I just have a simpler solution. Just use your fucking judgment and stop protecting them. They're football players, and just use your judgment. If it looks like it was a late hit, then just say it was late, and that's your judgment call. And you're just being honest. Stop protecting them. A hit to the head. Are you kidding me? Everyone gets hit in the head on every fucking play. Every play, everyone gets hit in the head. Now forcible contact to the head, like just like an arm, whatever, in the midst of a tackle is a penalty just because the guy plays a certain position. Every time a running back hits a ball, somebody's arm is hitting him in the head. It's the silliest fucking thing.
Now, if you're going to blatantly try to do something, yeah, of course, but just if an arm is swinging around, because when you're tackling somebody, your body goes in all different directions.
You're also, we're talking about defensive tackles that just fought through sometimes a double team of 300-pound guys. They're stumbling and bumbling while they have their split-second opportunity to make a big play that is fully legal and a major portion of the game. Or risk a 15-yard penalty in the process by accident. Just
15.
simply... But simply by happenstance, by the way the quarterback reacts, by, slipping in the mud, by any of these simple things. And you can tell with your naked eye when something was done to hurt a player or not. This idea that we had to go away from a rule that generated no problems until Tom Brady tore an ACL on a hit that didn't really look dirty, but if it was called, no one would have had a problem with it. And I think there's nothing wrong with a flag like that, where it's just like, it's 50-50. Half the people think it is a penalty, half the people don't. Fans of neither team. It could go either way. It was called, it wasn't called. We all get on, we all get over it. Right. You know what I mean? I don't know why we need to have this level of severity and all these, like, contact to the head, too high, too low. It's just...
They think they can regulate it out so it doesn't happen anymore.
It's
but that's
never
not the way the game
going to happen.
Played.
It's
not the way the
never
game
going to happen. Mm-hmm. Kayvon Thibodeau had another game where he was being bear hugged for a really long time. Yeah. I wonder how that feels.
I don't know. It's I don't know if it's a thing because he's a rookie, he's not going to get calls that he should, or maybe now he's become more of a star and maybe he'll start getting those calls. But this is ridiculous.
I mean, I'll say this for the officiating crew last night is they didn't make a lot of calls in general. There was not a whole lot of pass interference. I think there was one illegal contact and there was one holding penalty. That's it for like defensive all that stuff. I think there was maybe 2 holding calls the whole game on offensive linemen. This was a fair. I mean, they really let them play. I think so. I think that's fair enough. You know what I mean? I can't complain if you're holding onto the flags for most of the game. Just let them play.
And for the 1,000th time, I don't even know why I have to say this. Can everybody stop with, oh, the refs are biased? I mean, come on. Do you really think the NFL wants Minnesota to advance over the Giants? Come on. Stop.
Yeah.
So stupid.
Especially when the New York Cinderella story that's blossomed over the last 4 weeks is such a hot story right now.
Hey, Giants Cowboys was the highest rated game on Thanksgiving in how many years? If those two met in the playoffs, or they're playing Philly, or they're playing San Francisco, or they're playing Buffalo.
All of those are huge marketable games. Everything that's left.
Right. Minnesota, I mean, Minnesota people are very nice. They're sweet people. Minnesota nice is a thing, but nobody cares. There's no marketable real star on Minnesota where people are like, oh, I gotta watch Dalvin Cook or
just Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, and I know if I ask my mom who's Justin Jefferson, she doesn't know who it is.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. Does she know any of our wide receivers?
Well, you get asked a lot of people walking around New York City if they knew. I don't know.
Yeah.
Right, but they're also not considered stars and marketable people.
No, I know.
Yeah.
It's also just the New York brand is marketable. New York Dallas is marketable. New York Philly is marketable. New York San Francisco is a harken back to 80s shit. You can always market that. I agree with you.
This is going to be a monster week for ratings for the NFL. I would not be surprised if, cumulative over the 4 games this weekend, it's the highest rated divisions round of, TV ratings in history.
Could be.
Even without Tom Brady.
So that sets up this weekend. We get to go to Philly for Saturday night, the 8:15 game, 8:30, something like that. Dallas gets the honor of moving on to play San Francisco and Brock Purdy. And that's the NFC side. That's it. That's all that's left. And the Giants are one of those 4 elite NFC teams left surviving. Can you believe that shit? Unfucking believable. Really.
It's just, there was that after the game was over, and there's video out there of all of us. There's a great video, by the way. Somebody, I apologize for not giving the credit, but they specifically called me and you out at the moment I gave you a bear hug right at the end of the game.
I don't know who took the video, but Behan's the one who saw it. Danny Behan.
Yeah. It was just a feeling. We walked out of there just I don't want to think about Philly right now. I don't want to think about next year right now. I'm just happy that, not even feeling like, well, we're back. It's just, we're here. And we've seen how this league is, where at this time last year, Cincinnati fans were thinking the exact same thing. We had 4 wins. We were a piece of garbage. We were in the Super Bowl. And we might be that team this year. I mean, based on what you've seen from this team for the last month and how they handled a good team, let's not all of a sudden give Minnesota the complete dumper. I mean, they are a solid team. They're a playoff team. They won a lot of games this year. And the way we competed with them, I don't expect to see a repeat of Tampa Bay, Dallas next week in Philadelphia for sure. Or even a repeat of what happened when we played them in the Meadowlands a couple, 2 months ago, whenever that was.
I am less ready for that game. I am still feeling. I think by the time this episode comes out, I will have shifted to war version of me, where I'm ready to kill. I am still riding high on yesterday. I mean,
and we should be.
I'm very gloaty today.
This is great because I remember when the Giant run in 2011, going to Nick games, and they always have, people in Celebrity Row, like Chris Rock is always there and John McEnroe, blah, blah, blah. So what happens is, like, when you start advancing in the playoffs, all of a sudden you hear that Fox music, da-da-da, da-da-da, like, oh, there must be a Giant here. And they show some highlight of somebody, whether it was, Justin Tuck or Eli Manning. Well, it started today, a couple of Giants. I mean, again, probably 3 of the 5 lowest guys on the roster, but now all of a sudden they're getting to be the toast of the town again. And that's all it takes. And for being as irrelevant can be, we all can celebrate this. And it's okay to feel that way. None of us have any impact on what's going to happen on Saturday night. So I don't want to hear, don't have anybody bring you down by saying, hey, don't count your chickens, or, don't forget about next week. It doesn't matter. You are allowed to enjoy this. If you're listening to this show, it's not like all of a sudden 20 million people started listening to it. The chances are you've been with us through this season. You've been with us in the off season when we were trying to figure out what the hell we're doing with this team. So this is our time right now to be excited and be happy and gloat and be giddy and all of that stuff. And as we get ready to Philly, and we'll talk about it on the next show, like, what are we going to do how do we win this? Just have that little extra, hop in your step, because damn it, like you said, we're one of the 4 elite teams left in a very good conference. It's fantastic. I'm with you in is one of the co-mayors of Giddydom right now.
Yeah, own this week. This is the only. I mean, this may be the last Giants victory for a long time. Whatever. I just, doing this show, we've done this now since 2017. Every single time, every single year we get to this point, and you and I'm going to be flat honest, I don't really feel like doing the show. I mean, I want to talk to Cranky Fan. I want to talk football with him, and might as well hit record while we do it. But, like, right now we'd be talking about these games in, like, as if just strictly as observers. Like,
we wouldn't be talking about it. We'd be like, okay, and around the league.
Yeah, we'd be
Dallas beat Tampa Bay.
Exactly. And then we'd have to force out, like, these Giant stories about who got fired, who we're looking at, and then let that bleed into months of draft stuff and months of off-season shit after that. And it's just a whole lot of not actually talking about football that is relevant to the Giants, directly relevant to right the fuck now. Giants football. We don't get to talk. So this is it, man. They just won a playoff game. You get this week to live that. And by Saturday night, it might not exist anymore. So enjoy it. I'm going to be wearing Giants bullshit every single day of this week. I want every asshole in this town to be like, there's that guy again. He's always got fucking Giant stuff on. That's what I'm going to do that. That's what's going to happen. Because this is the greatest fucking feeling that, it's awesome. We are here. This is it.
And another thing to enjoy, because there's never any guarantees in this league. I mean, ask the Rams. We just said a year ago, Cincinnati was like, oh my God, we're here. Well, a year ago, the Rams just won the Super Bowl, and now they're garbage again. The best thing I heard last night at the Watts party is Bobby Skinner came up to us and said, we may have to cancel going to the Senior Bowl because it's conference championship week. Can you imagine that, Grump?
It is the silliest thing. This was our big rebuild year. You and I were really excited about, like, progress. It is a fever dream to expect, or, if future me was just like, you're going to be heavily involved in the divisional round of the playoffs this year, I'd be like, well, what happened? Did a nuke go off and wipe out half of the NFC?
And, we're not just involved in the divisional playoffs. We are probably story 1, if not 1, 2 of, like, takeaways from the weekend.
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, let me ask you this. We'll end with this before we, go into the actual Philly-specific episode Friday morning. But I want your take. In order, which team do you think people are most afraid of in the NFC right now?
San Francisco.
And then
It might be us slightly ahead of Philly right now.
that's what I'm saying. I honestly think the way they carved apart Minnesota was more impressive than what Dallas did to Tampa Bay, and Tampa Bay is a worse team.
Oof.
So I mean, I know it's not exactly that simple, and Kirk Cousins is not Tom Brady, and they have different issues and whatever. But they really carved Minnesota up like a cake, and I think they've been on fire the last couple of weeks, and I think they got healthy, and I don't think a single team in the NFC is looking forward to playing the New York Giants. I honestly think that.
I also think I want to give a star to, while we're talking about this, to Brian Dable, because we had a very healthy debate about, do we rest starters in the last week of the year in a meaningless game for risking momentum over risking injury? And did you notice any sense of loss of momentum in that game yesterday?
Hell no. But you know what? Nope. I think we didn't maybe factor in the fact that Minnesota was so recent that maybe they, that fire was. But I mean, ultimately, I think at this point, I think after everything I've seen this year, I can just trust Brian Dable at this point. I mean, they've made some blunders along the way, have not been perfect, but when they make a decision, I will trust to see it all the way through. At this point,
look at a body of work. That's all.
I mean,
at the whole body of work.
There's a couple things here and there, but other than the Adoree Jackson one, I can forgive all of them. So, whatever. Anyway. Next episode is going to be Friday morning for that Saturday night matchup against the Philadelphia Eagles. You can find this show on all the regular spots, iTunes, YouTube, SoundCloud, Google Play, etc. So we will see you all Friday morning.
And also,
good.
If you want to reach us on Twitter, especially, I mean, my God, my phone was a nonstop for 24 hours of buzzing between tweets and texts and listening to long lost relatives and old girlfriends and whatever. At the Cranky Fan, at football_grump, at Just Giants Pod. Let's tell us what you think about what you felt about this past weekend, what's coming up this week. We definitely want to know. We will also talk next episode where we'll be watching the game. And maybe we can all watch together somewhere. So
yeah, we're gonna try and figure something out.
Details to come.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Stay tuned. Go Giants.
Go Giants.